Welcome, everyone. We hope you've had a great start to the week so far, and welcome to this afternoon's session. We're just a minute away, so we're going to give everyone just a little bit more to join us. And in the meantime, just so you know, the chat and the Q&A are at the top of the screen, so feel free to use that throughout the session, and we'll get to it near the end. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded. This recording will be sent out next week to all who register. And then, as I said, there's a Q&A at the end of the session. So please put all questions in the Q&A or the chat of this top screen. And if we run out of time, we will be in touch with an answer. You will also receive your chosen resource on publication. And then on the bottom, if you want to contact us, you can contact via our email, os.secondary@cengage.com for any post-event questions. My name is Jessica Nord. I'm the marketing coordinator at Nelson Cengage, working with Ingrid on this series in particular. And I'm just going to hand it over to Ingrid before we get to the presenters.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Ingrid de Baets, publisher of this 5th edition of Tapis Volant. Now, you may not be aware, but Tapis Volant has actually been in classrooms around Australia for 30 years now. What a feat. And this longevity, I think, is not only testament to the continued excellence of the content and the sound methodology underpinning the series, but it's also in great part thanks to all of you teachers out there helping us to continually improve these resources through your constructive feedback. So please do keep that feedback coming. It's really valuable to us. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the two very special people who started all this and wrote the first 4 editions. And that's Alan Chamberlain and Jane Zamiro. They've retired now, but building on their successful legacy, we have a new author team, all experienced teachers of French, bringing their fresh ideas to this edition. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you today our lead authors and presenters, Pierrick Hubert, Ellen Moffat, and Melissa Savage. And last but not least, I'd also like to mention our team of contributing authors who created a lot of additional content. And they are Carole Elbert, Muriel Tumelou, Amy Pochinko, Françoise Reeves-Smith, and Kelly Dixon. So first, Pierrick will talk about the new features in this edition. Ellen will then take us for a deep dive into the methodology behind the content. Then we're back with Pierrick for an overview of the assessment strategies. And finally, Melissa will show us the benefits of the digital resources. So over to you, Pierrick.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jess and Ingrid. Bonjour à toutes et à tous, and thank you for joining us. Today I'll present what's new in the 5th edition of Tapis Volant, and here are the covers of the new Tapis Volant coursebook and workbooks. The design is modern and colorful, featuring iconic French locations. So you can see on Tapis Volant 1, the city of Nice, and on La Maison Rose in Montmartre on the workbook. And of course, you see our mascot, Moustache, the cat. He's of course flying on his magic carpet. So in this webinar, we'll focus on Tapis Volant 1, as the second level will be released later. In this new edition, units are reshaped, reorganized, and revised. The new content is designed for a clear, simple, and direct presentation. There are 10 core units under Unit 0. Unit 0 introduces French, France, and the Francophonie. It covers essentials such as the alphabet, accents, genders, numbers to 20, and basic classroom vocabulary for everyday interactions. A world map highlights countries where French is spoken. This edition places a strong emphasis on the Francophonie, showcasing the diversity of French language, cultures, and traditions across Europe, the Pacific, the West Indies, North America, and Africa. The 10 core units cover topics that relate to students' personal world, such as greetings, introductions, family, pets, food, school, daily life, appearance, clothes, celebration, going places, and holidays, to name a few. Most of the unit's content is new or updated. And we have new characters and stories for the comic or bande dessinée. So you can see these new characters on the right. We follow their adventures in each unit. So coming from Senegal in Africa, Australia, and Paris, these young people and their families represent the diversity of people, experiences, and situations that exist in all societies. And of course, Moustache, the cat, is never far away, living his relaxed cat existence in the course book pages and sometimes interacting directly with the reader. Alors, now we're going to look at the next slide and we're going to see the units. So let's take a closer look at how the units are structured. Each one develops all key language skills with content carefully scaffolded to build confidence. Ellen will go more into detail about the methodology later. Every unit opens with a clear objectives page. On the right, you can see Unit 4. So you can see that we've got the objectives at the top. We also have pictures of a French bakery, Senegalese cooking, and the Café de Flore in Paris. These pictures have cultural notes, and there's also a starter activity at the bottom to encourage engagement. You will also notice a quiz icon for prior knowledge, and that's on the bottom right side of the page. But I'll come back to this later when we talk about assessment. Alors, right after the opening page comes the communicant section. Here, we have sentence builders that introduce the unit's core vocabulary and grammar so that students can start communicating straight away. In this section, the cartoon story appears. In this edition, sorry, not this section. This edition, the cartoon story appears later, once learners are more confident with the language. So in the middle of the slide, you can see an example of a sentence builder. You can see a model question with various possible answers. The English translation is provided, and grammatical functions are identified. And grammar features such as gender or number are highlighted in color. And the recordings for the sentence builders are also available to support pronunciation and listening skills. Now, after the communicant and the sentence builders, we will find the grammar section. So in the grammar section, you will find some very clear explanations of the rules with examples. And we are reusing the vocabulary from the sentence builders. So you will notice, for instance, on this picture here, that the examples in the grammar lesson that you see are taken, part of the vocab is taken from the sentence builder. So we recycle the vocabulary that is presented earlier in the sentence builder. And for more complex grammar points, students can also access dedicated grammar videos via the ebook or the student resources website or on Tapis Volant Digital 1. Then this is followed by the liaison section where you will find the reading texts. So each unit begins with the bande dessinée, which is also recorded. You can see the tiny icon on the top right corner of the BD. This is the one for the first unit. So you can also see that the bande dessinée really follows the features of that kind of text with the speech bubbles. So this edition includes a wider variety of texts, and they are graded in difficulty to suit different learners. They recycle the vocabulary. They use visuals as well, graphs and maps to build multimodal reading skills. And they also introduce the different text types, like, for instance, diary entries, letters, emails, articles, and forms to prepare students for writing. Each unit ends with the vocabulary list. You've got that at the bottom left side of the slide. And as you can see, the words are organized in categories such as nouns, for example, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, and so on, to facilitate the acquisition, but also so that students can get familiar with the meta-language that is specific to language learning. And the vocabulary lists are recorded as well to support pronunciation and listening. And students have access to all the audio recordings through the Tapis Volant 1 Digital. Now we are going to talk about speaking. So the Workbook Plus includes the listening, writing, and speaking tasks for every unit, and with activities to practice, to consolidate, and also to extend all the skills that we've discussed, alongside, of course, grammar, reading, and vocabulary exercises. The listening is also supporting through the text and sentence builders recordings. And the writing task guides students through different text types. They are scaffolded, of course. And the speaking and writing activities let students recycle the language from the current and also the previous units. And so for the resources, so the new Tapis Volant is really packed with extra resources. You will see them through the presentation for the students and the teachers. And some of the resources that I wanted to specifically mention are found in the course book. So you can see the boxes on the right side. So we've got the En Francophonie, which is the blue one, and we've got the Découvrons, the green one. And in these boxes, so in each unit, these boxes widen the scope on Francophone culture, and they also add explanations on the French language. So with Tapis Volant Digital 1, students can access quizzes, flashcards, online games, extra worksheets, videos. Teachers can access tests, PDFs with workbook and unit test answers, and teaching programs and curriculum grades. And you will discover all these through the rest of this presentation. And now I'm going to hand over to Ellen, and she's going to talk to you about the methodology.
Merci, Pierrick. So yes, I'm now going to speak for a few minutes about the methodological elements that have informed some of the decision making throughout the design phase for this series. We were really trying to explore ways of making the 5th edition of Tapis Volant even more impactful, and that's not just for learners of French, but also for teachers of French. So one key theory underpinning the design of the new and improved Tapis Volant series is Stephen Krashen's comprehensible input theory. And some of you here in the webinar dialing in today might be familiar with this. Anyone who's familiar with Krashen's work knows he's been quite a key figure in the field of language acquisition since the 70s, pretty much. And his work on the comprehensible input theory is informed by one of two kind of key and distinct hypotheses relating to how language is acquired by a language learner. So on one side, we've got the skill building hypothesis, which asserts that we learn language by first learning the grammar rules and some isolated bits of vocabulary, and then we automate that language by producing them orally or in writing. Now, on the other side, the other hypothesis, which is where Krashen sits, we've got the comprehension hypothesis, which asserts that we acquire the language when we understand what we hear and read. So in other words, our mastery of the individual components of language, or what we might call the macro skills, is the result of comprehensible input or stimulus that we come across. So to support comprehensible input throughout the book, we've included the following features. So as Pierrick mentioned, each unit is underpinned by a range of kind of sentence builders, which illustrate core Q&A constructions, key phrases and sentence structures or constructions. These sentence builders include really, really clear French to English alignment to ensure that students are comprehending the language presented and can make that kind of near transfer French to English. They also provide the opportunity for us as an author team to recycle core language throughout each unit in both the comprehension tasks, listening and reading, and also the application or production tasks, so speaking, grammar and writing. I'll move on just to some further features that support comprehensible input throughout the book. We've ensured quite a clear and intentional progression in text difficulty and novelty throughout each unit. So we hope that as you flick through the text within each unit, you're noticing that the texts provide a more accessible entry point for more learners towards the start of the section or the unit, and then they progressively get more challenging with more novel or unfamiliar vocabulary embedded into the text progressively. So the earlier texts designed to be accessible pretty much at a whole class level, providing everyone with an entry point. The later texts provide a point of entry really for students who are ready to be exposed to or experiment with a higher proportion of unfamiliar language, so your more advanced student. So throughout each unit progression, the I+1 concept, this is another linguistics concept, has been kept in mind. So in other words, just that little bit more new or unfamiliar language, so that little bit of language that's just beyond the student's grasp, is progressively added into the mix for each successive task in the progression throughout the unit. So hopefully when you open a copy and you see that for yourself, that kind of comes through clearly. There are vocabulary boxes that accompany every reading and listening text throughout the book. So there will be students who perhaps need to rely on those vocabulary boxes less. There'll be students who need to lean on them much more heavily. So again, that just supports a broader range of students in a broader range of tasks. There are also in situ reminder boxes and also prompts with page references to previous units, which provide students that kind of very real-time prompting about grammar and vocabulary that they might have come across earlier in the book. So that kind of supports the students in making connections throughout their language learning journey and really strengthens their ability to transfer their knowledge and apply that knowledge in new contexts. So those are just some other features that support that comprehensible input approach. So as previously mentioned, the inclusion of sentence builders was a very early decision, I must say, made by the author team. It was a very easy decision to make. I hope I can speak on behalf of Milica and Pierrick in that sense. Whilst as a tool, sentence builders have been popularised in recent times by Gianfranco Conti through his extensive processing instruction or EPI approach. Many of us have heard of Gianfranco and his approach. Many of us play around with sentence builders in our classes, but sentence builders are a tool that have been used by teachers in languages classrooms for many, 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 many years. And I'm sure that many of us dialing in today have experimented with different iterations of a sentence builder with our own classes, and each of us has witnessed firsthand just how much they can support students' access to and also confidence in comprehending and producing key phrases and structures. So I know I am preaching to the converted here, but I will just outline a couple of the key benefits of employing sentence builders as a core feature within the methodology and design of this new edition of Tapis Volant. They are numerous, but here are just a couple of examples. They provide a very structured framework to guide students' language acquisition. They're in a very predictable and accessible format. So from unit to unit, students are exposed to the same format in terms of how they can structure core phrases and types of constructions. So this predictable unit by unit format and approach to presenting core language reduces cognitive load for the students, and it really does allow for that high level of repetition or recycling of core vocabulary and structures, which has that added benefit of enhancing students' retention and recall. Sentence builders help to model both basic but also increasingly complex sentence construction. And for the students who do wish to focus their attention and learning energy on just the most core language from a unit, the sentence builders make that core language really clearly identifiable. They don't have to go looking for, well, what are the really key Q&A constructions that I need to learn? To make that really explicit for the learners. And finally, sentence builders can support the development, of course, of students' fluency and also their confidence in producing language. So really providing that lovely scaffolding along the way and a tool for students to lean on as they attempt to produce the language themselves. I'm going to move on now to another aspect that's influenced our design methodology, and that's the concept of triangulation. So in other words, providing multiple and varied exposures to core language throughout each unit, as well as across the suite of available resources that accompany the book, so that students' language acquisition, their retention, their recall can all be optimised. So we as teachers can aim to achieve triangulation with and for our students by ensuring that they have access to the full range of learning and consolidation opportunities. The book is so much more than a book or books. Firstly, students can, of course, see and hear the core language from each unit through the wide range of written and spoken inputs presented in each unit. For example, the sentence builders, the reading and listening texts, and those texts also model a vast array of text types, which supports the students' language learning. There are example phrases and annotated worked examples illustrating each grammatical rule. There are audio recordings of the sentence builders and the reading texts as well. Now, beyond the very wide range of written and spoken inputs that support the students, there are many and varied application and production opportunities at the students' fingertips. So there are, of course, the workbook exercises, which are categorised by, as we've seen, vocabulary, grammar, reading, listening, writing and speaking. And in addition to the many individual opportunities for learning and consolidation, there are quite a high number of collaborative opportunities, so paired and group tasks, for example, and these cater to those students who really thrive in that collaborative learning context. So that was a key part of our decision making as well, was to ensure kind of whole class or small group or paired application opportunities. As has been mentioned previously, there's the suite of online quizzes and instructional videos to accompany each unit. These provide students with opportunities to learn or revise either in their own time, at their own pace, or in the classroom setting if you're a teacher who likes a bit of flipped or blended learning. And beyond all of the above, there's quite a wide range of other static and interactive consolidation tasks. So static meaning, additional worksheets, unit tests and other assessments, interactive consolidation tasks as part of the Tapis Volant digital platform. So lots and lots of varied opportunities for learning and consolidation to support that triangulation approach in your students' language learning. So it's my pleasure now to hand back to Pierrick, and he's going to speak about the opportunities and strategies that lend themselves to high impact assessment throughout this new Tapis Volant series.
Thank you, Ellen. So Tapis Volant offers a range of assessment tools, starting with formative assessment. So we've already mentioned the quizzes. So with the online quizzes, there's one that is the prior knowledge quiz that is usually at the start of the unit. And there's usually about 4 check your learning quizzes in each unit. So that's a total of 5 quizzes per unit. You can see some pictures of these quizzes on the right. So some of them are actually listening quizzes where you have to identify what you hear. Other quizzes can be conjugation. And so learners can use these to either self-assess, or they can also be used by the teacher in a way as an exit ticket, or perhaps as an activity during class. So it's quite flexible in the way that you can use this. Another great feature, I think, are the randomized vocabulary flashcards. So you've got these flashcard decks, and students can test themselves until they truly master the content. And the really nice thing about these decks is that they randomize. So in other words, you can do as many practice as you like in each unit, and each time the computer will come up with a different set of cards. And so I think that is really nice. Students really enjoy this type of activities, but because they already exist, that also saves you time, you teachers. You don't have to create these sets, so that saves you time, and that's really powerful for students. In each unit, the workbook exercises progress in difficulty. We've tried where we could to often include some extension tasks in each exercise, so that if a student actually performs the exercise really well, they can still get some extra work as perhaps the rest of the group is finishing this exercise. And that's allowing you to monitor and support students at their point of need during your class. So you've got the exercise in the workbook, and as Ellen was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of extra worksheets as well. You've got worksheets for grammar, for listening, and for reading. And again, these worksheets will offer you some insights into your students' growth. So we're going to now look at the summative assessment. So every unit, each unit includes a summative assessment. And this assessment is covering the listening, the reading, the speaking, and the writing. These tests also, of course, come with the sound files, so they are only accessible to the teachers, of course, the sound files for the test. And they are provided in Word format. So we know that sometimes we want to adapt things for classes. And so the test being in Word format means that you can adapt and differentiate the test because you can remodel them if you want to. The answers as well, you've got the answer key, and so that's available for a quick correction, but also you get all the answers to the test, but also to the exercise in a PDF version, because we all know that sometimes it can be nice to project the answers on board in the classroom. So that is something that you can do. So Tapis Volant also supports assessment for and as learning with the workbook exercises, the online quizzes, and the flashcards, because it does also help students monitor their own progress while giving you the tools for targeted feedback. Finally, each unit lists, vocabulary lists, sorry, are also available in words. Again, I think it's a nice feature because then you can easily make a small vocab test or, warm up activities, or perhaps some of you use that like prior activities when students sit in the class before you start marking the rule, you give them something to do so they get straight away active. That's something that you can use. And finally, in the teacher resources, so in the pack that you get, you've got the teachers' programs, and they really clearly outline the learning objectives and success criteria for each unit. They link the content of the unit to the assessment and the curriculum requirements. And the teaching programs, they really make it easy to integrate the content and the assessment into your own school curriculum documentation. So it's going to be really easy for you to transfer that. And I think with the resources, Melissa is now going to talk to you a bit more about these resources, actually. Thank you.
Merci, Pierrick. I am excited to add to what Pierrick and Ellen have already shared by speaking a bit more to the digital resources. One of the real strengths as we look at this first slide is the way that the physical book and the Tapis Volant One digital resources are woven together. By accessing the full suite of digital resources as well as the physical books, you and your students have always got help at hand, whether that is in class or outside of class. The hotspots in the ebook version of the course book give students access to all of the digital resources, audio, video, quizzes, games, the flashcards that Pierrick was speaking about a moment ago, extra worksheets and vocabulary lists as well. All of the digital resources are also directly available via the resources website. All of the resources relate directly to the printed book, meaning that students can engage with the content in multiple ways. The grammar support tools available mean that students don't need to wait until they're stuck. They can hear and see explanations at their point of need, which makes the learning much more responsive. It also helps us build our learners' independence by giving them a readily accessible toolkit of problem-solving strategies. We all know how challenging it can be as a teacher in the classroom to balance out time and rehash explanations. The grammar support is there to help. The other challenge that we can often have as language teachers is when we are looking for a grammar video to support our learners that really sticks to their point of need, that gives them information appropriate to their language level. We've really taken out the guesswork here and protected our students' cognitive load in the process by really just targeting what they need to know now. Finally, the audio flashcards, as Pierrick demonstrated earlier, are a simple but powerful tool for consolidation, helping to support students' vocabulary retention and help them with their pronunciation practice as well. They can be used in the classroom for retrieval practice at the start of a lesson. They can be used creatively as an exit ticket at the end, or can be used as well for some impactful home learning. So all of these resources together really give students multiple entry points into the language, which is really key in a mixed ability classroom. As we look to the next slide, all of the digital resources have been carefully designed to really amplify and extend what is happening in the classroom. The Check Your Learning quizzes provide quick formative checks that let students track their own understanding of new content. They're a low pressure way for students to know what they've understood and what some gaps might be, what they might need to revisit. Students are then able to look to one of the resources that we've mentioned earlier, like the grammar videos, to support that understanding, or alternatively work towards the extension tasks in their Workbook Plus. Across all of the digital resources, there's a really strong emphasis on independent learning opportunities. Students are able to explore, practice, or seek support through the digital resources at times that suit them. Which not only builds their confidence, but it also nurtures their curiosity in being able to explore. For differentiation, the pathways are clear. The resources are designed to provide support for students who need it, while also challenging those who are ready to take that next step. As language teachers, we can sometimes feel stuck in the classroom when it comes to extending our high ability language learners without having too many worksheets. And these extension tasks mean that students can still engage in tasks that are connected to the unit, but requiring deeper thinking, inference, or transfer to unfamiliar texts. We've also included time to play games with one memory game, as you can see there on the screen, and one crossword provided for each unit. And these are relevant and fun ways for students to consolidate what they've learned in each unit. And it keeps that practice engaging while still being really purposeful. We know how important confidence and risk-taking are in language learning, and these low-stakes games are such a great way to build our learners' sense of success and help them to see that the language classroom is really a source of not only learning, but joy and fun too. I've spoken a lot about how students can access the digital resources to support their learning. But importantly, these online tools don't just benefit students, they're also designed to do some of the heavy lifting for us teachers. So you can focus on the most important work in the classroom, which is building those relationships and responding to your learners in real time. We're all aware of the competing demands on teachers' workloads, and I'm often heard saying that the easiest part of my job is when I'm in the classroom with my students. And our aim with the teacher support material has been to facilitate exactly that, to take a hold of the admin, the planning side of things, so that you can really bring your expertise to knowing and working with your students. So just some excerpts from the teaching programs on the screen there, and that support and challenge options throughout that program as well. And finally, I know Pierrick spoke a little bit before about summative tasks, but the unit tests mean that all 4 skills, listening, reading, speaking, and writing, can be assessed quickly and efficiently. Answers to all exercises are easy to access, ready to share as needed, and there will also be pedagogical videos there to model practice and to give you confidence in trying out different approaches. We know that it's often easier to try something in your own classroom once you've seen it in action before, so those videos can also be helpful in supporting an area of your practice or seeing something done before you give it a go. So the next slide just shows a quick overview of what's available in the digital space for students and what is available for teachers on the right-hand side.